It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, September 22nd, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high-quality content that is very grateful we did not have to do that bag skate.
Oh, my goodness. I could never do that.
We'll get into day one of training camp on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on the app formerly known as Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. And as a show, we're on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky at Locked On Flyers as well. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. You can subscribe or follow us for free over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, I am exhausted from watching that bag skate. Absolutely brutal. They apparently did 8 reps of it as opposed to 6 from last year. And it was, oh man, they just looked like they were dead. But they got through it. It was really funny. There was some good banter with Scott Hartnell that Torts had about the drill, and would they potentially try and hide the rope somewhere and whatnot, and that was good. But I think that there was definitely some key points that came out of the day as a result of the bag skate and it being the first day of camp. There were some new faces, etc. But I think, this is our first look into what John Tortorella has to say about this season and getting going. And of course, the big quote from him that came out of it was that he said, "In my mind, we were rebuilding last year, and this is a second step, and it naturally will include some decisions to be competitive and figuring out where the vets fit." And I think that surprised a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that's, good for him on that count. On the other count, it seemed like the vets did better than some of the younger guys. And it's a worry for me because the off season is supposed to be a big deal for the younger guys to kind of step up their game. Even if they felt like they had a good season, hey, nothing's given, nothing granted. You got to earn it. And, while they earned it yesterday, I'm not thrilled with some of the results.
Yeah, Owen Tippett said that specifically, that Torts' message to them was, if you think you have a spot, don't get too comfortable, and, making camp competitive. I don't know. It was very, very telling, I think, what the vets had to say versus what some of the younger guys had to say. I was glad that Carter Hart was made available to talk as well. We'll get into all of that. Just talking about what Torts had to say, just because, again, this is like the first time we've gotten to sort of hear from him about the plan moving forward for this season. And he was asked a lot about Sean Couturier and Cam Atkinson. And, he said that he didn't watch Couturier specifically in the bag skate. It's more about, gameplay, and like when it gets to actual practices, he'll focus on him a little bit more. But that he was very excited to have Coots and Atkinson there. And for Couturier, he's excited more for him that he gets to be back and play, but looking forward to his leadership on the bench.
Yeah, sure. I mean, all those are positives, and, we'll see how he starts to get through camp and everything else. It's all wait and see.
Yeah. And, we have talked multiple times on this show about their workload and how to manage it, and that it's very important. And, Torts was like, no, we're not going to overthink it. They're ready to go. And I just
No, you
thought,
see, and I'm telling you
I know.
that is the wrong message. It really is. I know he likes to coach that way, but this is the 21st century, and we have to use the tools that are there to help make these decisions. Can't all be just how I coach and gut work. It can't be.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that the two of them responded differently to hearing that comment, or were asked about their workload management. And Couturier was like, I don't know what management has to say, but I'm eager to get into as many games as possible so I can get used to, the routine
Yeah,
and
he
the
needs to play.
physicality of it.
He does.
Yeah. So, at least he seemed to be in a good spot about that. And Atkinson said, yeah, he definitely wants to play in that first preseason game and then maybe the last few, that he feels like that's really what'll get him in the right kind of shape physically in order to get back accustomed to playing.
Yeah, and again, he knows his situation, so he not the easiest injury to come back from. So, I respect what he said.
Also, Torts talked about Mark Stahl joining the team and basically said he's the new Justin Braun, which is pretty much what we had said. But
although I wouldn't say that. He's better than Justin Braun. Like, I don't know. I don't like to hear that. Stahl's better than that.
Yeah, I don't know that it was in terms of play, but it was in terms of the mentorship and
Sure. Okay.
and the fact that Torts was very clear, and I think Stahl was equally as clear that they were on the same page about that Stahl won't necessarily check into every game, and that's
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
That he's not going to get in the way of the kids. Now we'll see
Right.
how that plays out, but at least on paper and what they're saying, like that's the plan, is to have him there as a leader to play. But then if they need to get some of the younger defensemen in, that's what's going to happen, and Stahl will sit.
Yeah, we'll see.
You seem dubious about this situation.
I am dubious about it.
Yeah. He also Torts talked a lot about some of the younger D, and again, I think it's really interesting how he how he phrases things and how he talks about things, because he says he doesn't listen much to the people around. He wants to make his own opinion about some of these guys, but some of these people around him have opinions for a reason. Like, they have expertise.
Yeah, that's, you can't dismiss, and I don't think he dismisses them, but I think you have those guys there for a reason, and really everybody, it's guys, it's women, it's everybody. You have all these coaches there, and for a reason. Use all of that. Don't, again, not what I love to hear.
Yeah, I understand wanting to form your own opinion, but then you have to also then layer in these other people's opinions around you to figure out who to play and combinations and all of that. So hopefully that's really what he means. But it's always like interesting when he talks about his approach.
Yeah, it is.
I think that one of the other themes about what Torts had to say is that, he likes the feeling in the room. He feels like it's kind of a new day. Everybody came back by September 1st because that's how things go in a Torts system. Excited about the new guys, that there's like enough turnover, that there's a really a different feeling in the locker room, but at the same time, there's an understanding from the returnees about what's going to be different versus last year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think if the message is going to change, that's you let them know, and you let them know now. I'm fine with that. That's no problem.
Okay. There's so much that happened on that first day, and the guys had a lot to say about the bag skate and more, and we will get to all of that coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by Birddogs. I look better and feel great wearing Birddog shorts and pants. The stretchy fabric makes my legs look great, and they're comfier than my shorts and pants. I do wear them on long car trips. I wear them at tailgating. I wear them to sporting events. For prolonged wear, they're good. The cloud knit fabric looks just like khaki and stretches in a slimmer fit, and the anti-wicking really works well. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL and enter promo code LockedOnNHL for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL for a free water bottle at checkout. You don't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you.
Next week on the show, we will continue our coverage of training camp and head into our first preseason game. So excited to talk about those as well. In the meantime, we had Bag Skate Day yesterday, and talking about some of the younger guys, to your point, that maybe didn't do as well in it. Torts mentioned Cam York struggling with it a little bit, but that he was proud of him for finishing up strong, and then he got through it, and that's really what he's looking for, that it's a mental challenge more than the physical challenge.
Well, okay, so on the York side, it's a worry because again, the coach doesn't want to acknowledge that, hey, we lost Ivan Provorov, it's a big loss. Okay, that's fine. Who you're filling that spot with is a big deal. And Ivan Provorov would not have failed that test. And so, like, that's for Cam York's first foray into trying to be a top pairing defenseman is, guess what? The skating has to be above board, like not just getting through it. He could be proud of the guy for getting through it, but this tells me he's still developing and he may not get past that second pairing kind of projection. And that's something the Flyers have to be prepared for now. Like, they're not going to say anything publicly, but they're going to have to talk about it behind the scenes because now that is a red flag.
Yeah, I think, we'll see how the rest of camp goes and see how he plays. But I think that, this was, I believe, the first year where he didn't go to rookie camp, like that he was just part of the main group. And that has like a certain level of expectation with it, that you're no longer a prospect. You're an NHL hockey player now. And so, you got to step up your game a little bit. And so I do think it's a little bit of a concern, but I do think that Torts is a man of his word in terms of, what we just talked about, that he kind of wipes the slate clean and forms his own opinions. And this will be part of it. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No doubt about it. And as far as Tippett goes, he was never a great skater. I know people were excited because he skated better last year than any other year they'd previously seen him. But I'm not shocked that he had trouble with the test, and that's fine. There are some guys that you could only improve so much, and as long as his goal scoring improves, it's fine. So that's one where it's a different situation. Defensemen have to skate better than a lot of the forwards, just as a rule. And so, like with Tippett, I'm not as worried.
Yeah, talking to some of the older guys, especially Sean Couturier and Cam Atkinson, it was good to hear from them on day one, to get a sense of how they're feeling. Obviously, both of them said they felt great out there and they got through the skate well. Although I would say Sean Couturier probably had some guys nipping at his heels the whole time. Because again, he's a good skater, but that's not what he's known for per se. So that's why it feels like the bag skate wouldn't be like the thing he's best at camp.
No, that's true. I mean, Atkinson's a much better skater than Couturier, that's for sure.
Yeah. But it was also interesting for Sean Couturier specifically, again, because this is kind of like year one with Torts for him, just because he didn't play. And so this was his first bag skate and everything. At least with Cam Atkinson, he's had the experience before with Torts, so he knew what to expect. And so I thought it was just real interesting, and the difference between the two of them and their experiences for bag skate day.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's where Atkinson had a little mental edge, and that's a big deal. Having a mental edge can really help you.
Yeah. And Atkinson especially was talking about, he wants to experience that first hit just to get through that mental barrier to make sure he's okay. But he feels really confident that he'll be fine. He's been scrimmaging all summer and taking, some physicality in that play. So he feels good about it. But like I said in the first segment, they have slightly different approaches to how they want to manage their preseason action, but I think it fits where they are.
No, it does. I mean, then I watched Atkinson scrimmaging before rookie camp on the other side, and sure, he looks pretty good. I still have the same opinion. Wait and see.
Yeah. I think with Sean Couturier, he, I think, is really sort of has come to the terms that he is 30 years old now, and like
Right.
what is his career. He mentioned specifically, I'm 30 and I haven't really won anything. I'm ready to win games and go on a playoff run and go on a cup run. Maybe we can do it in a couple of years. So he's at least, I mean, we know
No, we
what
know, but I feel it's tough for him because
yeah.
he's getting older and he realizes with this injury that, hey, the clock's ticking and you feel bad. That's why I reacted like that. I feel bad for him.
Yeah, I think so. But, I think it does give guys like him and Atkinson extra motivation to be
Hmm.
leaders and set that
Sure.
example just because they know their clock is ticking. And if it's a 5-year rebuild, but they're like kind of maxed out at year 3, like they got to jumpstart this thing, which I think is
Well,
good for the
think
Flyers in general.
it's good for the other players, but they signed for different reasons. Couturier didn't sign on for a rebuild. He's thrust in the middle of it. And Atkinson definitely didn't sign with the Flyers to play for a rebuild. He didn't. So
Well,
they're
he
sort of,
signed with Columbus, so
yeah, but when he got traded, he didn't think he was getting traded to a team that was rebuilding. He didn't. And so that does change, perspective. And, I feel a little bad on that in that regard for him too. He'll try his best, but that's not what he signed up for when he got traded.
no, that is absolutely true. But again, it's so good to see both of those guys back in camp.
Yeah.
And I am really interested to see what kind of impact they have in the lineup and on the ice. Just because it was extremely noticeable last year without them and the skills that they bring.
No, I think Cates and Frost will benefit having those guys out there for a lot of
Mhm.
different reasons. So that's good. No, it's all positive. There's no negative having those guys in the lineup. They're certainly going to be better. Again, do I think their defense is any better? No. That's where I think if one of them were a defenseman, I'd feel better for the team.
Yeah.
Defensively, I have no idea where they are.
Right. Right. We did hear from some other guys. We mentioned Owen Tippett, and he got through the bag skate okay. He said there was debate over whether it was better to know what you were getting into or not know what you were getting into, and they still aren't sure because in the end you just kind of have to push through it. Scott Laughton was there, and he talked about Tippett a lot, actually, and that was impressed with the strides he made last year and thinks he can be a huge difference maker for them. And I thought he had really good advice in terms of guys like Owen Tippett and Noah Cates that are in that, like, okay, we're just now calling ourselves established NHLers.
Mm-hmm.
That you just got to stay in the present and the day to day of making each day and each game successful. You can't think about making it or not making it or the big picture, because then you'll be in your head too much and thinking about the effects of things rather than what you're doing.
No, he's right, and that's why it's good to have Lawton around, and just for worldliness like that.
Yeah, I think so too. And, obviously he also thinks it's going to be great to have Coots and Atkinson back. There's going to be a big difference in their performance, and it's a calming presence to having
Yeah,
Sean
sure.
Couturier in the locker room, especially. And, all three of them really talked about being underappreciated around the league. Talking about the fact that only the media really talks about the Flyers being a terrible team, that, in the locker room, it's different. And, I think there's something to that to a large degree.
I would say he's 50% telling the truth, because
Yeah.
when they're losing strings of games or they're blowing leads, they're talking about where they stand. And Tortorella talks about it. It's not just the media. He'll tell you when the team stinks. So
Yeah.
there's some truth to that. But he's just
Yeah.
saying, hey, we're not walking into the locker room defeated. And I agree. They don't do that.
Yeah, I think that's true. And And it does feel a little different. And the way these guys are talking is definitely different than it was last season. And so I think that it's a good wait and see right now. Obviously, there's more camp to come, and got to get
Yeah.
into games to really have a better sense of how all of this translates. But it feels good, I think.
Well,
As
it's
we start
supposed to. I
things.
mean, if it doesn't day one, you really have a problem. But again, um, look, players and especially veterans don't want to be told you're a bottom 5 team in the league. But right
No.
now, until proven otherwise, they're a bottom 5 team in the league.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, Carter Hart had a bunch to say as well. We'll get into that. Plus, the Flyers released their promotional schedule. So we'll touch on some of those dates coming up next. So I thought it was really good to hear from Carter Hart on day one, just because of what's going on with Hockey Canada and everything around it. I just thought that it was really good for the Flyers to make him available. He was asked about it pretty close to the beginning and said, I don't know either, and I can't talk about it. It's the same as it's always been. Sorry. like,
Yeah, but that's fine. He
yeah,
has to make that public statement, and that's fine. I just, like we all wish that you would know one way or the other with this. It's just dragging, man, and it's just I'm
yeah.
not saying that like, hey, it's my issue, and no, it doesn't affect me. I feel bad for the victim, and I still always will feel bad for the situation. And but the fact that it's dragging does affect the league. It does.
Yeah, it really does. One thing that was interesting, I didn't realize that the goalies do their own version of the bag skate because obviously they're not out there.
Right.
But they do a VO2 exercise on a bike.
Mhm.
And Carter Hart said that it's very hard, but it's nothing like what the skaters do. And and the goalies all feel bad for the skaters, which again, I didn't know the goalies did that. So I think that's cool.
No, that is cool that he was, I figured they did something. I didn't know exactly. The VO2 is not easy. We see that at the combine. I see that every year. So, no, but that's good. I mean, again, you're pro athletes. If you're showing up in camp to get in shape, you're doing it wrong. And nobody really does that anymore. But the important thing, this is the important but. If I'm Tippett, and especially if I'm Cam York, I got to get a new trainer next summer because it didn't work for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's a definite possibility there. With Carter Hart, he talked about some of the turnover. He was sad to see some friends go, but that the, changes seem to be going in the right direction. He talked especially about what the defense will look like in front of him when he was
Yeah.
asked about it. And, that's a big concern to us and to everybody, basically, because the D is going to be a little younger and maybe a little weaker given who is no longer around. And so he emphasized communication, that's going to be a big part of it, to build that and to build trust. And you could read into it like, yes, I'm really hopeful, or you could read into it, oh my God, like this is going to be really challenging, and we better communicate because otherwise it's going to be even worse.
Like he knows what he went through last year. It's not going to be any
Yeah.
different. It might be worse.
Yeah. I just thought just trying to read between the lines on that one.
Yeah.
Was really interesting. He also talked about the trade rumors about him, and that it was a stressor for his friends and family, but not for him, because he has really strong confidence in Danny Briere, and that he trusts him, and that if there's anything afoot, that Danny will tell him. And so he's happy to be here, and he's not really, he hadn't really thought about or hasn't really talked about contract negotiations yet,
Yeah.
which
See,
that
that's the
part of
big
it,
elephant in the
I
room.
know.
That's something that the fact that it's not being talked about, there is no extension talk. It's worrisome because, again, you could look at the Flyers' future goalies, and I like Sam Urson. I think he's years away from being a potential NHL starter. Potential. I'm not even telling you I could guarantee you he's an NHL starter, because I can't. So it's a concern.
Yeah. Well, I think, again, there's a little bit of cryptic talk
Yeah. Oh,
happening
yeah.
with Carter Hart, because that contract discussion is a big deal. And if he's trying to play it off like they haven't talked about it, but that he's confident he's going to be a Flyer and he's happy here, I mean, that's part of the messaging for a contract negotiation, right?
Yeah, but I mean, again, if we ask him in December and nothing's happening, it may mean he's getting traded. So that's the reality.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Before we go, just a couple highlights in the Flyers promotional schedule that came out. Always looking at the giveaways because I like giveaways.
Yeah,
Of
sure.
course, they have a T-shirt the opening game, and they did a beer stein in the past, but I think I like the beer stein better this year with like the skyline, and it has that like Oktoberfest
Yeah,
feel
yeah. I'm a
to
big
it.
beer stein fan, so
So I like the look of it, and they're going to be doing like a Halloween themed day, which they've done in the past, but it's been like just really gritty dressing up. It hasn't been like a full blown theme,
right.
so that should be fun on
Yeah,
October
I'm not
28th.
dressing up for that.
No, I'm not a get dressed up in a costume unless it's like a thinking costume.
Right. Yeah, it's not happening for me.
Yeah. And then of course they're going to do a Star Wars Day and a Marvel Day, and we have the Flyers Hall of Fame game. So that'll be January 27th with Mark Recchi getting added to the Flyers Hall of Fame. We've talked about that. And then looky here on January 6th, the Ed Snyder Legacy game.
See, that makes me happy. That's great.
Yeah,
I
we'll
like
talk
it.
about that more as we approach it. But yeah, it should be a fun season with all the theme days and the promotional items that they're giving out. There's a Planet Fitness giveaway day, so I'm very curious to see what that giveaway is specifically. And then
What are
the
they
last
giving you? A
giveaway,
jump rope? What are they giving you?
maybe like a free month membership or
That's probably
something.
what
I
it
don't
is.
know.
Yeah.
But they also have a bucket hat toward the end of the season. Cannot go wrong with a good bucket hat.
I guess if you want to wear that at the beach and look ridiculous, sure.
No, bucket hats are very useful in terms of keeping out the sun. They keep your
Yeah,
head
yeah. If
from
you're gonna
getting
wear it for
sunburned.
gardening, great. Don't wear it in public.
Yeah,
No, don't wear it in public. I'm telling you.
I think bucket hats are cute.
Okay.
Anyway, that'll do
We
it
remain
for.
divided on that.
Okay. That will do it for today's show. We will be back again on Monday. We are going to preview our first preseason game against the New Jersey Devils. Plus, we'll have our nemesis of the week. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So send in any mailbag questions you have. You can DM us on Twitter, email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com, or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great weekend, everyone.